All right. Hello and welcome to an unplanned sequel. Yesterday I did my 40th anniversary NES video. Then I went to work shortly afterwards, and while I was at work, I remembered a few other games I could have mentioned. So here I am. Always seems to work that way whenever I do a video like that. I always seem to forget about something I should have mentioned in that video that I don't remember to until after the video is already done and uploaded. Yeah. Anyways, left off with this game, but there's still several other NES games that I used to play a lot of and don't mind the idea of playing again. Like this one. They came out in, what, 1990, I think it was, without looking it up. Ancient Greek inspired like Kid Icarus, the game I'm currently doing a playthrough of for the NES. I'm not going to bother naming the characters here since this isn't a full playthrough. Not bad music for the NES. Not that I noticed that until years later. I mean, again, for the bajillionth time, I would always turn the sound down on the TV and put on whatever rock album I was into at that point in time, and that would be my music for the gameplay. And that went on pretty much every day. I'd play a game until Ocarina of Time in 1998. That particular day, and my first time ever playing that game, I didn't feel like doing that, so I just let the music play through, and was greeted to Kokiri Forest and Deku Tree, and then later Hyrule Field. And hey, yeah, long story short, the game that made me actually want to hear video game music. One of the reasons I still to this day hold that game with such high regard. Not because it was my first Zelda game, no. It was my fifth Zelda game. I had already played all four of the previous titles, Zelda, Zelda 2, A Link to the Past, and Link's Awakening. It wasn't because of childhood memories, as I was already 26 years old. Actually, I was already 27 by the time I first played Ocarina of Time, so yeah. Hardly a child anymore. But yeah. Then afterwards, I went back and replayed all the old games, actually listening to the in-game music this time. And, yeah. So I spent a lot of 1999 and 2000 going back and replaying the old games, actually listening to the music, not just starting it out with. Anyways, good game. Difficult at times, but then again, what game isn't? Well, I suppose there are some easy games, but of course, I'm not the one to talk about, if you really want to get down to it, I'm not the one to talk about challenge in video games. I mean, seriously. You're asking the wrong person about challenge in video games. What do I know about video game difficulty? Because most of the games I play are RPGs, and anybody who's seen my videos long enough can easily attest to the fact that I'm like the king of being over leveled, plowing through any random battle any fool enemy that dare get in my way. Blah blah. So what do I know about video game difficulty? Yeah. And of course, again, for anyone who wants to comment on that subject, I don't mind challenging games as long as it's, fair, as long as it's not based on stiff jumping controls like some of those early Castlevania games. Or based on jank RNG like a lot of RPGs with their spamming of status ailments, crippling your party. Like some of those Etrian Odyssey game post-game super bosses. Or even in my case, you can have a party fully maxed out at level 99. And you still can't touch that guy. He could one-shot kill you because of status ailments and insta-death spells. Like, what? Screw this. Yeah. That kind of so-called quote-unquote challenge. Yeah. Never mind, I won't say what I'm thinking about that because I'm trying to keep the rating here PG, but hopefully you get the idea. The letters F-O? Yeah. Wink, wink. Anyways. Oh, great. Where did... Oh, okay. All right. Battle of Olympus. Well, if I were to make a habit of getting into sports games, where is that on this list? There's always this game. One of our neighbors owned this in 1988. Well, they owned it all the way through, but that was the year I used to play a lot of it. Since, I was just getting into the NES and we didn't have too many of the games yet. But by the end of 88 into 1989, that changed between video game rentals and buying our own games. Didn't really play so much of this game anymore since I was never a big racing fan in the first place. And when it comes to racing games on NES or Super Nintendo or the 8-bit or 16-bit era, I'd still stick with the Super Nintendo game Top Gear 2. I mean, this is okay, but of course this game, as I was just talking about how I used to drown out the music and put on whatever rock album I was into at that point in time, this game is one of the contributing factors to that, as there is no music to drown out, just the video game equivalent of engine sounds. That's all you hear. Small wonder I wanted to drown that out and put on something more worth listening to. Well, I just barely talking about just barely making it to the checkpoint. But yeah, each course has like three checkpoints that you got to make it to before the timer runs out. Easier said than done though, because you lose time every time you crash, and some of them are spaced just so annoyingly so that you got to pretty much have a perfect run. Can't crash, can't have anything that slows you down. Yeah. Especially when you get to the last couple, like level 6, 7, and 8, the last few, there's only 8 tracks in the game. Again, this isn't a bad game as far as racing games go. I've just never been a big racing fan, whether it's video games or otherwise. Ooh, almost made it to the second checkpoint. I did manage to beat this game back in the day, thanks to the fact that you can continue where you left off. Like, well, I'm going to start track 1 again since I didn't make it to track 2. But if I did, I'd be able to start off at track 2. Wouldn't have to come back here and play track 1 every time. Unlike, well, actually, never mind. I can't finish that because thinking better of that, the original Super Mario Brothers had that same thing where if you hit A as you hit start, you could continue what level if you make it to 2-1, you could continue there instead of going back to 1-1. Anyways, a more obscure title for the NES. Even some of the big NES fans that I know my age or a little bit younger, like my younger brother's age, that, like I did, grew up on the NES. Well, I didn't really grow up on the NES. I was already 16 by then, but don't even remember this game or don't even know it existed. So, yeah. Again, one of the people that used to live, well, at that point in time, 1988, we lived in, well, not really in an apartment building, but a duplex or whatever you call that. One building with one apartment on one side, one in the middle, and one on the other side of the building. And we lived in the one in the middle. Anyways, hard to explain, and I sound like an idiot now, but one of the people in the same building, let's just put it that way, had this same with Rad Racer, but they got it at some clearance bin somewhere. They didn't like it, so I bought it from them very cheap. Yeah. Well, I would have paid full price for it, but they insisted since it was a used game, they had dignity, they were honest. They insisted that since it was a used game, even if only slightly so, that I don't have to pay full price for it, so, yeah. But I remember thinking, hey, well, other than that, looks kind of like Goonies 2 in a odd sort of way. And yeah, I already did a playthrough of Goonies 2 for the channel a couple years ago now, so yeah. Problem is I don't remember any of the controls for this now. Because it's been, hey, okay, there we go. It's been, well, I had it for, oh, we hold the button. Oh. Yeah. Basic controls in each room. Okay, how do you get out of the room now, though? No, great, I'm stuck in this. What? Huh. Okay, if I ever did do a playthrough of this game, I'd have to play around, goof around with it, so to speak, for a while until I get used to the controls again. So I used to play this a lot as the 80s ended into the 90s, but that was 35 years ago now, and yeah, with the advent of the Super Nintendo and A Link to the Past. In fact, I don't think I've played this game since April 1992 when A Link to the Past came out. We got our first Super Nintendo for that game, exclusively for that game. Yeah. Since this game is so obscure that it's not even been ported to any virtual console or NES Online or anything like that, even the producers and the video game companies like Nintendo seem to forget this game. So, yeah. Never been re-released on any collection that I'm aware of, or I might be tempted to buy it just for this game, but yeah. Another game that I could possibly see myself doing a playthrough of somewhere down the line, whenever I'm ready to go back and revisit an old NES game again. In the meantime, however, looking at some of the comments to my earlier videos in the Kid Icarus series, actually at this point, the only person that's commented on them, Twitch streamer and YouTuber I Got Kings, or Brian is his real name, but and the reason that name stood out to me is because it reminded me of another game that I used to play a lot of, that I could still see myself doing a playthrough of sometime in the future. Because it's one of the games he did Twitch streams of and put his videos on his YouTube channel for. Where is it on this list, though? There it is. Yeah. Another game I played a lot of in 88, 89. Kind of, I mean, it's been listed as a Metroidvania, and I could kind of see that. A primitive precursor to the Metroidvania genre, like Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, another game of 88. Of course, a lot of people are going to remember this game because of the AVGN, Angry Video Game Nerd, Rambo video, where he talked about several different Rambo games, this one being one of them. It had nothing but bad reviews for it. But anybody that wants, like any of his videos, they're fun to watch, mildly entertaining with his, comedic view on reviews. But I still urge people to actually play the game for themselves and develop their own opinions, not just go by what he says. Of course, I think he says the same thing, actually, but that his videos are just entertainment only. Anyways, yeah, I got experience, points for killing enemies, so yeah, elements of Simon's Quest and Zelda 2 as well. Now, storyline purposes, it's more based on Rambo 2, the sequel, than the original First Blood movie from 1982. Alright. There was somebody, I think it was here, or was it in the other, or maybe it was over. Yeah, it was over here. Okay. Alright. Anyways. That'll up there at the top of the screen, the different weapons. We don't have that many right now. Like any video game, your selection is short, very brief as you start the game. You pick up more of the powerful weapons as you play, pretty much like any video game. I mean, it would be nice if they gave you all the better weapons right away, but some people would argue that would take away the challenge if you have the best weapons from the start of the game. And to some extent, I can agree with that. Like a second playthrough of Zelda 2 or a second playthrough of the NES original Metroid, how you start off with all of your main power-ups from the first playthrough. You can just breeze right through most of the game. Yeah. Fun, but... yeah. Anyways. Rambo, NES. Another game I could see doing a playthrough of some point. Again, like all of these games, I ain't gonna make any promises to exactly when that'll be. What with Final Fantasy V, Dragon Quest VII, still wanting to do playthroughs of Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. Okay. anyways, another game I used to play a lot of back then. That is also, that as far as I know of anyway, has never been ported to any console, virtual console, collection, NES online. Other than angry video game nerd videos like Rambo just now. Seems to have been forgotten over time. To some people that's probably just as well, but always having been a big fan of Bugs Bunny and Looney Tunes since I was a little kid in grade school, Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show being my highlight of Saturday morning cartoon blocks in the late 70s, early 80s. 90 minutes of Bugs Bunny cartoons used to make my Saturday mornings. But yeah, again, this is another one of those games that a lot of people may only remember because of James Rolfe's AVGN videos on the game, or actually the whole series, and the comedic exchange between him and Mike Matei as in the Bugs Bunny costume. Mike Matei, however you pronounce his last name. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong again. But once again, I still recommend people try the game for themselves and develop their own opinions. Just don't automatically go by what he says. You know. I mean, I like his videos as much as the next James Rolfe fan, but even so. Oh, and what am I doing? That's okay. Whoa, getting. Oh shit. No, can't go that way. Oh, down there and get that. Oh, do you mind going down? Okay, can I go? Oh, yeah. Okay, that one was on me. I was trying to go down, and I was hitting the up button to do so. Yeah. Alright, don't need it. That's for... Level clear. Yeah, look at that. In fact, if I recall correctly, James/AVGN even commented on that. The short passwords. Why can't every game that had passwords have passwords that short? I totally 100% emphatically agree with James on that one. That was one of the things I used to hate about those passwords. Not only the fact that zeros could look like O's and G's could look like sixes, etc., 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 but the goddamn things had to be 15, 20 characters long. Then you have games like this. Sweet, short, simple, Again, why couldn't every game that have passwords this short? I wouldn't have minded the password system had that been the case. Wouldn't have been so eager to see passwords replaced by battery backups in Zelda, Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior games. Yeah. Anyways, yet another game I can see doing a playthrough of at some point. Whenever I'm ready to go back and do another shorter NES game in between longer RPGs. And now, a game that I have a lot of nostalgia for, I've mentioned in a lot of previous other previous videos. My first video game I ever played in the arcades in 1980. Well, it had already been out for 2 years by then, but 1982-1983 school year. Yeah. Much better port of the arcade classic than the one on the Atari 2600 that has so often been cited as one of the contributing factors to the video game crash of 1983. That and Atari 2600 ET. No, I would never do a full playthrough on this because it's pretty much just the same levels repeated over and over and over and over and over again until you die, until you lose all your lives, and that's it. That's all. So yeah. But this is another NES because it's Pac-Man, a more true rendition of arcade Pac-Man than you ever had in a home console before. Granted, you have the same thing in a lot of others since then. Frick, there's even a port of this on the 3DS Virtual Console. So, yeah. But as of 1988, 1989, yeah, this was almost like like being in the arcade again. And for someone like me who had his start in video games thanks to this game, oh yeah. Oh, you want to follow me, huh? Follow me now, buddy. Anyways. Okay. Now, following that, as I've mentioned in many videos before, the next game that I played was this one, roughly 9 months to a year later on Apple II computers at school. 83, 84, 6th grade school year. Except, well, I love the fact that they brought Load Runner to the NES, but unfortunately, well, it looks a little better than it did on the Apple II computers if everything wasn't black and blue. No, it's black and gold, but yeah. But unfortunately, they cut 100 of the 150 levels. Yeah. So it was only like 1/3 of the game, which always used to piss me off because Wrecking Crew, a launch pack, well, not a pack-in title, but a launch title for the NES had 150 levels. So many times I'd sit there thinking, well, why couldn't this game? Wrecking Crew did. Why did you have to cut 2/3 of this game? Yeah. And while I might just for the heck of it someday do a playthrough of this game for the channel, but for personal gameplay purposes, thanks to a remastered port called Load Runner Legacy on Switch that has all 150 levels, if I might add. Yeah. If I ever really get nostalgic for this game again, I can just pick up my Switch and play that. All 150 levels repeated for emphasis. Not just 50 of them. I mean, I get it. They probably cut 2/3 of the game for technological reasons, RAM, frame rate, all that kind of technical stuff like that. But I think 100 levels was a bit excessive. Maybe 50, but 100? They really had to cut 100 levels to save space? Really? This game isn't exactly the most graphically advanced, even for 1988 standards. I mean, come on. Anyway. And lastly, Gradius, however you pronounce that. Typical space shooter, like so many 80s video games in arcades and on NES. basically, if you played one, you played them all. I mean, they offer a little bit of variances between the games, but the basic core. Then again, I guess you could say that about RPGs as well. Minimal differences in abilities and whatnot, but of course, this is like most of these NES games. This is another one that, while I played it a lot in the '80s, all the decades that passed by since then, you probably count on one hand the amount of times I've played them since. Which is kind of silly, being that I do have this game on my 3DS Virtual Console. Got it for nostalgic reasons, obviously, but yeah. Again, not much to say here. Like any other space shooter, there was a lot of these kind of shooter games on the NES. Life Force, 1942, Guardian Legend, which was parts shooter, part main. Oh, actually, more about that game a little later. Now that I think about it, this video doesn't end with this game. Give me a second. Or 3, whatever. Let's see, where... Speaking of which, made by the same company that made Lode Runner. Huh, I just now noticed that, actually. Surprising. Decades later, I just now noticed Border Bund, same company that originally made Lode Runner. Surprising I never picked up on that at the time. Yeah, see? Starts out as a shooter, has like 20 levels of this, but in between, there's an overworld map that plays more like a Zelda game. Problem is you got to be really good at your space shooters to even get to that. And I'm not gonna lie, I very seldomly ever did that. In fact, I don't think I've ever beat this game. Wow. Cringe! Hide head in shame. The only time I ever did beat this game was cheating my rump off with Game Genie codes. Yeah. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to laugh at me, and, you know, looking back at it, I kind of laugh at myself, so we're even there, but yeah. I don't recall ever beating this game legit. I tried and tried and tried, and eventually gave up. There were other games I wanted to play, so I gave up. Popped in the Game Genie and cheated my rump roast off, just so I could say I beat the game and see the ending and move on to another one. Yeah. Shame be on me, I know. Slap myself in the face, I get it. But come on, let's be honest. 80s and 90s gamers out there, who hasn't done that at least once? The Game Genie wouldn't be such a memorable piece of hardware if it was just me that used it, you know. Get over yourself and be honest. I'm sure many people watching this video probably did the same thing with at least one game or another. Be honest with yourself, much less anyone you may be talking to. I cannot be the only person that cheated a game that way. Ever. At any... yeah. Anyways. Yeah. As always, nice going back and, at least for just a few seconds, playing some of these old games again. This game, like I said, if I ever do a playthrough of it, I'm going to have to practice it, get better at it before I actually do a recorded playthrough of it. So, I might some point, but I'd be more likely to do playthroughs of Rambo or any of the other games I've talked about in this video before this. Games that I didn't need to cheat with Game Genie to complete, you know. And that'll about do it. Of course, watch, just as soon as I end this video, I think of yet more games that fit the bill. Games that I played a ton of times in the 80s, early 90s, that I wouldn't mind playing again today. But other than Mario, well, I already mentioned Mario series in the first video in this now two-part. Yeah. Plus, actually, while I'm thinking about it, let's not end the video quite yet. There are a few games, like, where is that? Like this one, that I never did play. I was always replaying Zelda, or my brother renting or re-renting Castlevania, and plus whatever new game. So yeah, I don't think I ever did play this game. I always heard about it from other people, seen it mentioned in Nintendo Power magazine and whatnot, but yeah, I remember thinking it looks a lot like Castlevania or Castlevania 2 graphically, with the blocks. So yeah, I don't even know what we're doing in this game. One of the NES games that I've never ever played. I may have heard of it, but never got around to playing it. There are a lot of those. I mean, as much as I love the NES, I'm not even going to pretend to claim that I've played every game ever released on it. I mean, counting unofficial, unlicensed fan games, God, there's got to be close to 1,000 of them. I mean, I don't think there is anybody that's ever played all of them. Well, maybe nowadays, since that was so long ago, now you've had time to play all of them. But at the time, can't kill him? Okay, never mind. Okay. Looks like an okay game from what I can tell. Granted, I'm only, 20 seconds in, but... of course, there's also games like this one that, as of 1989, no one in America played because it was never released here. Not until remakes and remasters years later, anyways. Final Fantasy II. The real Final Fantasy II, not Part 4 being mislabeled as Part 2 for the Super Nintendo. No. The actual Final Fantasy II. Again, not I or nobody here in America played this in the 1980s. Kind of sucks that this wasn't released on the NES. Granted, because of the schedule of releases and whatnot, it wouldn't have been until the early 90s, since the first game was released in December of '87 in Japan, but not brought here to America until the spring, summer of 1990. By then, Part 3 had already been out in Japan, actually. Yeah. So it wouldn't have been until like late 90, early 91 by the time this would have been brought to America, if it had been at all. I know, he's the main character. Give them the names that they have in the Game Boy Advance remake of the game, as well as the more recent Pixel remaster of the game. Oh, I didn't want to go that far back. Okay, never mind. Guy Speak Beaver. Well, never mind, that comes up much later. Okay, they do still have this first battle. It wasn't just something added to the remakes. Ow. Ow. Yeah. Battle that you cannot win. But at least they have the decency to make it obvious from the get-go. Unlike a lot of these battles that, for story purposes, you have to lose to continue the story. Like several boss battles in Dragon Quest VII, for example. Where if you're leveled or over-leveled like I always am, you have the delusion that you could actually win. Wasting all your spells and items, resources, thinking you can pull it off. Until you slowly realize he's invincible and has infinite HP and therefore you cannot... Yeah. At least here they make it obvious right from the start. You haven't got a prayer. Of course, this is, by the way, obviously a fan-translated copy of the game. Since it was never officially brought here, it was never officially translated, at least not until recent years anyway, but this NES, or this 8-bit original, was never officially translated since it was never brought here to America anyway, so there was no need to. But yeah, I would have loved to have had this at the time in the late 80s, early 90s. And personally, I still don't get why they never did. I mean, those familiar with the Final Fantasy release history story know all about it. By the time Final Fantasy 1 came out here, when it was long enough after that to think about doing another one, Japanese developer, the creators of the series were already working on Final Fantasy 4 being for the Super Nintendo, Nintendo's new console. So they wanted the next mainline Final Fantasy game to be for it. So they opted to skip these two games initially and go right to Part 4. Okay, fine. But we're talking about 1991. They were still making NES games for another 3 or 4 years yet. After they released Part 2 or 4, release Part 4 as 4, and then go back, and then release Parts 2 and 3. They still have plenty of time to do so. 92, 93, 94. Hello, they still had 3 years to work with before they completely stopped production on NES games in late 94, early 95. Still plenty of time to bring this game and Part 3 to America. Yeah. Anyways. We here in America didn't get this game chronologically speaking until, late 90s, early 2000s. PS1, Final Fantasy Origins, along with a remake of the first Final Fantasy game. Yeah. Then the Game Boy Advance, and most recently the Pixel remasters. But yeah, took them over a decade to bring this game to America. I mean, considering it was this version you're seeing here was first released in Japan in December of 88. Anyways. along those same lines, Final Fantasy III, the real Final Fantasy III, not Part 6, mislabeled as 3. Yeah. First released in Japan on the Famicom in the spring of 1990, a few short months before Part 1 was released here in America. Yeah. Alright, these... Okay, they did have default names in the DS remake, 2006. The first time American gamers ever got to play the game outside of emulation. The the 3D, DS remake in 3D art style. I don't even remember the names they gave the characters for that version of the game. Since I have only played that a couple times, not really a fan of it. May look better being in 3D and more modern, slightly more modernized as of 2006 modernized graphics, but yeah. So, I'll just give them the names I gave the characters for my on-channel playthrough of the GBA version of Part 1. Name them after other Final Fantasy characters, the main playable characters of other Final Fantasy games. Cloud, the main character in my favorite RPG of all time, Final Fantasy VII. Bartz, the main character in my second favorite Final Fantasy game, Part 5. Locke, the main character in my third favorite game of the series, Part 6, or 3 on the Super Nintendo here in America. Of course, my fourth favorite game in the series is the first one, and like this game here, the characters didn't have names until you gave them one, so skipping that one, going to my fifth favorite game of the series, something that I never thought I'd hear myself say legitimately, but thanks to the Pixel Remaster fixing a lot of the annoyances of the original, my fifth favorite Final Fantasy game in recent months has become Part 4, or 2 as it was here in the West. And yes, I said that. People who have been around the channel long enough or know me personally may remember how many times I used to diss on Final Fantasy IV, saying that its only good quality was its soundtrack. Well, again, the Pixel Remaster has helped change those opinions. Anyways, like Final Fantasy II, another game we didn't get here for years to come. 16 of them actually, as again this was originally released in Japan in 1990. The DS remake, the first official version of it released here, wasn't until late 2006. Yeah. Which, as I commented on in other videos, I still to this day don't get. I mean, Final Fantasy 1 and 2 were both re-released on the PlayStation in the late 90s, early 2000s, and again as Dawn of Souls on the Game Boy Advance. Twice. Final Fantasy IV was released alongside Chrono Trigger as Final Fantasy Chronicles in the early 2000s, and then again Final Fantasy IV Advanced on the GBA. Okay? Again, 2 re-releases. Final Fantasy V was released alongside Final Fantasy VI as Final Fantasy Origins on the PS1. And then both games got their own Game Boy Advance re-release, remake. So all of the other, games in the first 6 of the series had 2 re-releases before this game had even 1. Why? What was it about this game that... I mean, again, at the time it was passed over being 8-bit while the industry was moving forward to 16-bit. Okay, fine, I get that, but... We never got this game until remakes years later. And yet you're not supposed to use emulators. They're bad. Yeah. Hey, game industry. Do the letters F-O mean anything? Okay, I need to get my own gag. I started reciting Smokey and the Bandit, slightly changing it a bit, but just point being, yeah. Middle fingers. You don't want us using emulators. How about porting even if it's just on Switch NES Online kind of thing like that there. Port these original versions, not just remakes, but let us play the originals. You don't want us using emulators. Yeah. I mean, I've been over this very same rant how many times on this channel already, but every time I play games like this, it brings those old arguments to mind real quick. We're not supposed to use emulators, but yet they don't want to. Sorry, game industry, you don't get it both ways. Anyways, and lastly, the extremely tough boxing game, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Or after Nintendo's deal with Mike Tyson fell through and they neglected to update it because of criminal activities or alleged criminal activities on his part, the game was remade with all references to Tyson cut out and just released as Punch-Out! With some Mr. Dream or something like that replacing Mike as the final boxing bout. Yeah. No, I'm not going to play this game. As one, I'm not a big boxing fan. Never have been, never will be. Not even really in the heyday of Mike Tyson, late 80s. Well, okay, actually, I'm not going to lie. I did watch a couple of Tyson's bouts in the late 80s, but did play a lot of this game. Never beat the game. At least not until years later, playing it on 3DS Virtual Console with save states. Yeah, cheating again like Guardian Legend, but... Yeah. Of course, in the 80s, beating this game was like a badge of honor for gamers. For probably still is today, but maybe not as much since you have a lot of other hard games. But oh yeah, by the way, Glass Joe. Yeah, had to at least mention this, since it was a game that so many people played back in the day. Okay, come on. Are you going to do anything? Just stand here wailing away at you. Oh, there you go. Oh, damn it, didn't time that right. Anyways. Oh, you can't pause? Oh, that sucks. Yeah, remember that now, actually. Couldn't pause the game. Better make sure you don't have to go to the bathroom before you start up. Or if anybody comes knocking on your front door, they're just going to have to wait for a little bit because you can't pause the game. Ah, frick it. I'm going to do the laughable. I'm going to actually lose to Glass Joe. Because while I do have some nostalgia for the game, not enough to actually care. Again, I'm just mentioning this as an honorable mention. It'd be kind of, I think, kind of silly to do an NES, especially a two-part one, NES video, without at least mentioning this game as a passing thought. Since pretty much everybody back in the day played it at least once. At least where I lived anyway, I don't know. Guess I can't speak for every every gamer around the entire planet, but at least where I lived in Minnesota, oh yeah, everybody was playing this game. How far we got was a matter of individual gamer, but still, everybody played it. But the only other game I could say that about was the first Zelda game. Yeah. Oh, and the first Mario game, that too. Of course, the first Mario game, I tend to leave that out because it was a pack-in title for what they used to call the bundle pack. Everybody played it because everybody had it. If you had an NES, you had that game. Yeah. Anyways, keep forgetting you can't pause it. Go ahead, knock me out again. I'm now losing twice to Glass Joe. Go ahead and laugh. I'm laughing too because if you actually think, yeah, I may not be able to beat the game, but if I really cared, I could at least get past him. I mean, come on now. Anyways, that'll about do it for. Hopefully, I won't have to do it now. I mean, not that I mind doing these videos and all. It's just I thought I covered all the games I was still interested in the possibility of playing with the first video. Yeah. But watch, knowing me, I'll end this video and somehow manage to think of others that fit this bill that I still like and wouldn't mind playing again. Might end up doing a third video. Oh well, we'll see. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching my videos. Nice to know people like them. And as always, have a good day, and we'll see you next time for more Kid Icarus. Bye.